AI is no longer confined to experimentation labs or innovation teams. CIOs and tech leaders are making strategic decisions about how to leverage AI into environments where teams can make decisions in real time under real operational constraints and with real consequences. An enterprise AI infrastructure strategy is now determining which organizations succeed in scaling. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Diyalani. Now, with that being said, results won't be defined by algorithms alone. They will be shaped by how and where AI is deployed, how rigorously it is governed, and how well it is supported by infrastructure. Let's welcome Shrish Anand Lal, Executive Director and Chief Business Officer at New Street Tech, to discuss the significance as to why enterprises should focus on AI infrastructure and not just their AI models. Hi, Shrish, a very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Hey, hi Priya. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to have you on a podcast today, Shrish. And I think when we talk about AI models and AI algorithms, there's so much conversations around, these crucial topics. Why AI infrastructure is important? What are certain components we need to keep in mind while developing our AI tech stack? But I think we are going to discuss a lot about it in our
Yeah,
conversation today. But before that, let's set our foundation today's conversation by telling our listeners more about New Street Tech, its specialization. Alongside that, a little bit more about you, Shrish. How has the journey been till date, and what exactly is your role at the company today?
sure, Priya. Thanks. So let me start with the company. New Street is a technology company. We have been serving banks, financial institutions globally, and our platform has processed a large amount of volumes across lending, savings, insurance, and various financial services products. What we have built is deep expertise in regulated financial environments, the kind of environments where I think you know that governance, auditability, and compliance are not an optional. And with that experience and on that foundation, we have built myfix.ai. It's a prompt to product AI platform where you describe your business requirement and the platform configures it using specialized AI agents. Then your team reviews and approves what the AI agent has produced, and a deterministic agent deploys it. You can go your systems live in days, not in months. About me, my role is leading the enterprise growth in the company, business development, strategic partnerships globally. I have to take myfix.ai to every enterprise which is still waiting months for their software to be developed while it should have been done in days. In simple, I can sum it up. What New Street Tech is doing is we are bringing AI to your data. We don't take your data to AI, which is a very important thing to understand.
Thank you, Shrish, for that insightful introduction. And we're really glad to understand the journey behind a new street tech and the vision that drives its growth. And we're also glad to understand about your role and how your leadership contributes to shaping the company's strategy and long-term objectives. Okay, so with that foundation set in place, now most of the leaders, they say that success will hinge on where organizations run AI workloads, how quickly they can move and process data, whether power is resilient and reliable, and whether their infrastructure can consistently deliver low latency, high availability performance at scale. For commercial and industrial leadership teams, this shifts the core question from which AI platform should we adopt to what foundation will support our AI applications as a long-term operational capability. So, what are, certain limitations that enterprises are realizing about merely just relying on AI models?
While this is a very fundamental question, and this is the conversation which I'm having with enterprise leaders almost every week. Everyone is investing currently in AI models. But the model is maybe 20% of the problem. The other 80% is everything around it, especially when you are talking about an enterprise. So governance, auditability, integration with their current legacy systems, the complete change management and deployment of the AI layer. So that is what we at New Street describe this as a state of FITS. FITS. FITS is fear, inertia, trust issues, and surprise. Recently, my CEO Sajeev and I co-authored the piece on this in ETH. And let me tell you that none of these can be solved by a better AI model. There is, the data which is there in front of you tells the story. According to NASSCOM, 65% of Indian enterprises have started AI pilots. Fewer than 15% have moved to production. That gap is not a model gap, it's an architectural gap. A brilliant model, an AI model which hallucinates in a regulated environment is worse than having no AI at all, as you know. The model needs to be confined to the design stage. The execution must be deterministic. It is very interesting to note that AI models are becoming a commodity very fast. AI architecture is the durable competitive advantage any enterprise can have going forward.
That's an important perspective, Shrish. And it's important since these AI conversation continue to evolve beyond just model performance and benchmark scores. What we are hearing more and more from industry leaders is that having access to a powerful AI model is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Uh,
Yeah.
the real challenge lies in how enterprises can operationalize AI at scale, bringing together data, infrastructure, governance, security, and even the business processes to create those measurable outcomes. Great. Moving ahead, Shrish, now with the surge of digital transformation and advanced analytics, constructing a formidable AI infrastructure has become a very pressing priority for organizations worldwide. Because truthfully, if you don't do it right, you could be losing out on your greatest competitive advantage. And I think let's just be honest, AI is not just a plug and play technology. It's more like an organism. It needs the right environment to thrive. I think we have discussed a lot that, if a data is not that great, the output is not going to be that great as well. With that being said, the entire environment needs to be right. So when you talk about AI infrastructure, what are the core building blocks that enterprise should be thinking about and they should prioritize on those building blocks?
I think this is a very important question, Priya, and I will keep it simple. There are four things which we should think about when we are talking about core building blocks of AI infrastructure. First is separation. AI should operate at the design and configuration stage. Execution should be deterministic. This is very critical. These two are different layers. They must stay separate. And this is a absolutely, like, with our experience, it's regulatory in regulated industries. This is a non-negotiable. The second thing is governance by design. Now, the maker checker workflow, the audit trails, the version control, or the role-based access, these cannot be an optional feature which you enable later after implementing some platform in your organization. They have to be foundational. Third, and one of the most critical things which is coming, is orchestration. Using one AI to do everything is a very fragile strategy. You need specialized agents handling specific concerns with a supervisor coordinating them. And interestingly, at myfix.ai, we have about 36 plus specialized configuration agents plus 14 deterministic execution engines. The agents will build the configuration, humans will approve the configuration, and then the engine, which is a deterministic engine, that will run it. Coming down to the fourth, which is the deployment flexibility. Once you have created something, it's very critical at enterprise level to have the flexibility in the platform for deployment, whether it's on premise, whether it's a cloud native deployment, whether it's a hybrid. Especially regulated institutions will never put their data on public infrastructure. So your AI platform must work within their walls. So to sum it up, separation, governance, orchestration, and flexibility. These are, if you get these four right, everything else will follow.
That's a great insight, Shrish. And I think, yes, when we talk about AI infrastructure, I think it is no longer just about having access to just a computing power, but it's all about creating an integrated ecosystem that brings together data, cloud platforms, governance, security, and of course, alongside that, our scalable AI models. And I think as enterprises and even startups and companies, as they're moving from experimentation to a more enterprise-wide AI adoption, the strength of this underlying foundation often determines how quickly and effectively they can realize its business value. And what also stands out is that AI infrastructure is not just a tech-driven, priority. It has become more like a strategic business investment because I think eventually with the increasing AI workloads and the computing power, you need an infrastructure that can manage that sustainably. And you also need that flexibility to adapt to the rapidly evolving AI innovations. Great. Now, I think for years, the dominant narrative was very much simple. Push workloads to the cloud, simplify
Mm.
what you own, and maintain it. So those assumptions of cloud as the answer to all is now under, I think, scrutiny. Enterprises are having to reconsider their AI strategy based on a new set of factors that AI introduces, with new layers of exposure, like you have sensitive operational data, you have regulated or protection information, then you have mission critical decision loops. So, in many cases, this is not about rejecting the cloud. It is about preserving control where it matters most and adopting a nuanced and a hybrid strategy that best suits your long term needs. So, how are cloud platforms, compute resources, and modern architectures evolving to support this large scale AI adoption?
So the cost of AI compute is dropping rapidly. What was very expensive 2 years ago is now accessible. So fundamentally, this is good news for adoption. But the real evolution is not in compute, it's in the architecture. The shift that matters is from AI as a service to AI as an infrastructure. Let me explain this further. Multi-provider resilience is required so you're not dependent on a single AI provider. Hybrid deployment is of sensitive workloads should stay on premise. And most importantly, the ability to run AI configured systems without ongoing AI dependency at runtime. The last part is critical. Configure once using AI, then execute deterministically without AI in the loop. That is the architectural shift that will enable enterprise scale adoption, especially in the regulated industries. See, what happens is you take system, and if you leave it completely to AI, then there will be a black box situation which will have a lot of unanswered questions. But if you have the architecture as I just defined, all those black box questions will be resolved and there will be more confidence on the architecture which is in play.
Yes, Shrish, I think I agree with you. And, when we talk about AI, I think a lot of leaders get it wrong because they still consider AI as a software challenge. But it is not. It is becoming a core infrastructure challenge as well. And again, while, when they're scaling and shifting from experimentation to a more enterprise-wide deployment, the demands on cloud environment or compute power, even data processing capabilities, they all continue to grow exponentially. And I think the ability to efficiently manage these massive AI workloads while maintaining reliability and security is becoming a key differentiator for organizations looking to unlock some real business value from AI. Okay, so building on that thought, I think, 1 year ago, people would say, we want more AI. And I think that was enough to secure a pilot budget. Now the bar is higher. This is what happens when AI moves from curiosity to capital allocation. Now, boards and executive teams are asking the right questions. What is the payback period? Where is the value hitting the profit and loss statements? How do we scale impact without scaling risk? The problem is that many AI ROI conversations still begin with the most uncertain choices: model selection, vendor selection, or a grab bag of potential use cases. Now, that is difficult when most enterprises do not have a portfolio of AI projects. They might have one pilot, a few experiments, or nothing in production. So, how has the conversation around AI ROI evolved as enterprises are moving from experimentation to more actual deployment?
Supriya, I can't agree with you more on this because 2 years ago the question in every boardroom was that should we adopt or invest in AI? Today the question has changed. They are asking why is our AI not production ready yet? Now this shift tells you everything. The ROI conversation has moved from the cost of AI adoption to the cost of not having AI, and that is the fear element in fits. Enterprises are now more afraid of failing to adopt AI, falling behind the curve, than getting it wrong. That's the change which I can clearly see in the conversations which we are having. But here is what I have seen which work. The enterprise seeing real ROI are the ones that start small. So, a live business dashboard delivered in, say, 72 hours does more for the organizational confidence than a 12-month strategy document. Speed creates believers. And the ROI is not just in the cost reduction, please remember, it's in the time compression. If you can go from business requirement to live system in days instead of months, the ROI is in speed, not just saving. Crunch time to market, crush the total cost of ownership. That is the real equation.
Very well said, Shrish Anand. Yes, I think early on, many organizations were focused on exploring the AI's potential and testing proof of concept projects to understand what was possible. But today, however, the discussion has shifted significantly to more as to how we can get more measurable business outcomes and not should we implement AI. And again, I think for anyone who is trying to deploy AI, success is no longer defined by simply deploying an AI model, but it's defined by its ability to improve productivity, accelerate decision making, reduce cost, and I think ultimately contribute to the overall business growth. And with that being said, the focus on ROI is also becoming even more critical. And I guess leaders are also under increasing pressure to justify their investments, demonstrate some tangible returns, and again ensure that those AI initiatives align with broader business objectives. Great. Moving ahead, Shrish, now when we talk about AI, something that everybody is talking about is AI agents and autonomous workflows. Now, like I discussed, I think a lot of people were still considering AI as a software. So many enterprises are drowning in software. They have CRM platforms, HR systems, workflow tools, cloud platforms. So it seems like every department runs on a different stack. Yet most organizations still operate through fragmented workflows and human dependency. So the problem is no longer just the access to technology, the problem is coordination. And with that being said, now an automation workflow can send an email when a form is submitted, but an autonomous AI agent understands why the form matters, what should happen next, who needs to be involved, and how to optimize the outcome. And I think that difference is kind of changing a lot of things on the table. So, how does the rise of AI agents and autonomous workflow change the infrastructure requirements for an enterprise?
So, Priya, let me be clear about something. You know, AI agents are not chatbots. They are specialized workers that handle specific enterprise concerns. One agent configures your UI, another sets up a validation rule, another builds a workflow, and another handles compliance. When you have multiple agents operating simultaneously, you need three things. First is orchestration. So a supervisor coordinates them. Second is the trust levels, because not all agents should have the same autonomy. And the third is cross validation, where agents check each other's work before anything reaches for a human approval. So, like talking about myfix.ai, we have about 37 specialized configuration agents and 14 deterministic execution engines. The agents build it, the humans approve it, and the engines run it. That is the fundamental difference in infrastructure requirement, just versus having more compute. So the future is not one AI doing everything. It's specialized agents orchestrated with trust levels and human oversight. And that is how your enterprise grade AI platforms will look like in the future.
Right, Trish. And I think when we talk about these autonomous agents, yes, I completely agree with you that this evolution is kind of blurring the lines between traditional IT infrastructure or data architectures. And I think it's a good point that business are kind of rethinking how they should design and manage their tech foundation to support an increasingly autonomous future. Great. Now, when we talk about AI, Shrish, I think enterprises they're very excited when we talk about AI, and they're always looking for certain use cases to experiment and then deploy enterprise-wide AI initiatives. But again, I think when we talk that enterprises are trying to get some tangible business outcomes, it is not without its challenges. Now, a recent report found that over 30% of generative AI projects are abandoned after the proof of concept, while another report found that AI projects can have double the failure rate relative to non-AI IT projects. Now, the part of the reason for these failures could be that organizations are jumping headfirst into AI investments without a clear strategy. So, a lack of strategy can, of course, cost your company resources, undermine productivity, and ultimately fail to deliver a meaningful business value. How important is it for enterprises to build a comprehensive AI platform strategy rather than just adopting AI tools and platforms?
Yeah, I will also, some part of your earlier question also I'll cover here,
Mm,
because this is what I call the AI sprawl
right.
problem.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this,
Mhm.
and this is one of the most important conversation in enterprise technology right now. Here's what happens. Every department will go and buy its own AI tool. What happens in 3 months later? You have 15 AI vendors. No one is talking to each other. They're generating conflicting outputs, and nobody can trace which AI made the decision. And we have seen this before, Priya. It happened with ERPs 20 years ago. It has also happened with SaaS 10 years ago. At the end, the enterprise that adopted a strong platform won, rather than people who, went for this shopping spree. The ones that accumulated disconnected tools spent the next 5 years integrating them, and hence this is going to play out similarly for AI, because there's similar people making decisions. Platform will beat individual solutions every time. A platform gives you connected workflows, unified governance, traceability of decisions, also a consistent experience, which is very critical. And all this is together is what an enterprise needs. If the question is architecture over accumulation, that is the single most important principle in enterprise AI, that architecture will win.
I agree with you, Shrish. And again, I think just to wrap up what we, spoke about, I think having an comprehensive AI platform strategy. It's more like a business transformation initiative because then it empowers enterprises to standardize their processes, accelerate innovation, improve collaboration across teams, and create a framework that can support future AI advancements without constantly reinventing the wheel. And I think as the AI adoption across world probably, as it continues to mature, enterprises will likely be judged not by how many AI tools they deploy, but by how effectively they can integrate them into their overall operating model. And that naturally brings us to my next area of discussion, and also probably the last question for our discussion today, Shresh, is now we discussed a lot of about AI infrastructure. What are certain things enterprises need to keep in mind while building their AI infrastructure stack or their overall platform strategy? If you were advising a CEO today, what would be the single most important infrastructure investment to make for long-term AI success?
Yeah, Priya, I think what I've been telling to all the CEOs and decision makers across the industry is invest in architecture, not tools. Tools can change, every quarter. The architecture will endure. Very specifically invest in a platform that separates AI configuration from business execution to, resolve all conflicts, confusions. AI should be at the design time, and then there should be deterministic engines at runtime, and there has to be human in the loop for approval. That architecture solves for the fits, the fear, inertia, trust issue, and the surprise problems simultaneously. Now, and do not start with a 3-year AI transformational program. Start with one use case, one dashboard, one workflow delivered quickly to you. Let the organization experience the speed, then expand. The CEOs who get this right will not be the one who spends the most on AI. It will be the one who ships AI into production faster with governance and the legacy infrastructure strengthened, not replaced. My advice is, in a single line, don't just buy AI. Build an AI architecture, start small, deploy fast, govern everything. I think rest will follow.
That was a very fantastic end to our conversation today, Shrish. And yes, I think enterprises that invest early in durable foundations and architecture will shape the next phase of enterprise AI because they will be able to preserve control where it matters, align AI deployment with energy realities, design for adaptability, and evaluate total cost beyond performance because those advantages, will eventually compound over time. Thank you so much, Rish, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and sharing some incredible insights from your end in terms of AI infrastructure and architecture, and also helping us understand that the journey does not end once your infrastructure is built because success in AI depends on how quickly you can adapt, optimize, and scale as your workloads and data evolve. So, thank you so much for your insights. It was lovely chatting with you, Shrish.
Thanks for having me, Priya. It was great having this discussion with you.
Likewise, Shrish. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation around AI infrastructure. And the winners will not be the fastest, but they will be the ones who build the smartest. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Thank you so much.